Hello, my name is Kieran Brigden. I'm the Studio Communications Manager for Creative Assembly, and I'm here at Leipzig showing off Empire Total War. Empire Total War is quite simply the Emperor of Total War games. It's certainly, I think, technologically speaking and gameplay-wise, the biggest leap we've made for the Total War series. If I'm really honest with you, yes, it is the absolute biggest, and most exciting title, in the Total War series today, definitely.
Admiral, welcome to the Age of Sail.
In the sea battles at the moment, you've got, I think we're aiming at a maximum of having 20 vessels for each side. So you can imagine that's kind of a very, very huge battle of up to 40 ships. And of course, there are about 25 different types of vessels as well.
Does each ship have a separate captain, or there's like an admiral for the whole fleet?
Yeah, there's an admiral who covers the whole fleet. His role is very, very similar to a general in the land battles, in the sense that each of the ships itself has its own kind of command, but in overall charge of that fleet is one ship containing an admiral.
And how will the weather and the environment affect sea battles?
Well, of course, in terms of the environment, the most basic and obvious thing is the wind and the wind speed and direction, and all of that affects how fast your ships can move and how well they manoeuvre on the waves. Of course, if you're sailing into the wind, it makes you very, very slow and hard to turn and move, whereas if you're sailing, with the wind, you can move very, very quickly and manoeuvre very, very well. In other terms, of course, we've got different sea conditions, which means, you get very, very rough seas and very, very calm seas. If you don't position your boats correctly, you can very often find your boats get, ridden up on the waves and smashed into one another and do each other damage. Additionally, you've got things like snowstorms and rain, depending on where in the world you're fighting, and these kind of like typhoon-style weather conditions. Low visibility, low range of fire. If it's torrential rain, you'll find that your guys' gunpowder gets wet and the cannons on the deck perhaps don't work as well as they could. We've got a number of historically accurate presets, including things like crescents, line abreasts, line astern, whereby your ships can be pre-configured during deployment. You can also create your own custom formations.
What's up with the cavalry in Total War series? Because, when cavalry attacks, they don't stop next to the enemy.
Oh, I see what you mean. Okay, yeah, they run on by. Well, I mean, there is a level of realism in that. I mean, first what I'll say is with Empire, we've done a lot to improve all of the, the behaviour of the units, so you won't find, kind of units running on beyond where they're supposed to be going and stuff. You're charging a horse at very high speed, either a static or a moving target. So if your enemy's coming towards you and you're charging a horse at them, in actual real terms, very often the horses would be pulled short a little way beyond the enemy. We're not being untrue to history, but in real terms, in terms of the way you play as a player, yeah, we've done a lot to try and make sure that the unit behaviour is much more coherent and much more natural this time around.
Is Poland a playable army in the game?
We haven't yet released our list of entirely playable factions, but possibly.
Because there is a picture on the official side of the cover.
Yeah, yes, I know, of a cover for Poland. They were a major presence in Europe at the time. Okay, the best answer to this question is Poland was a major presence at the time. We've represented all the major presences of the time as countries that are playable, but we're waiting a little while before we release our entire list of playable countries. But I think you'll be pleasantly surprised.
Surprised?
Yeah.
The timeline of the game spreads 115 years. Does the military technology change during that period?
Oh yes, very, very much so. Certainly in terms of the technologies that you're able to research, because for the first time in a Total War game we now have a tech tree. In real terms, the technology kind of progresses throughout the game as you research it and as you implement it. We've made one or two kind of poetic licenses, you might say, whereby we've brought in some technology just outside the period. I mean, you may have seen already examples of our steamships. They are very, very playable, they work within the game, and they don't break the game historically too much.
Well, that partially answers the questions about improvements on the strategic level of the game.
Oh, yeah, sure. In terms of the campaign map, well, that's been massively improved. And so now diplomacy is much, much easier to do. In Rome, for example, you might remember you move your diplomats around the map till you can find someone, then you talk to them and you do a deal. And now you've got a diplomacy option in the campaign menu itself, whereby you can immediately make deals and kind of treaties and so on and so forth with other players in the game. So you can know, for example, that if you're going to attack France, you might want to ally with someone that hates them before you end up starting that war. So you can see that again via means of that diplomacy. Very, very intuitive, very simple, but at the same time very, very powerful. We've got trade routes coming out of major trade theatres, meaning that you can generate income from having sort of certain areas of the map controlled by your trade fleets.